Another day in Biel, another exciting day with a lot of very interesting games. So today in round 2 of the Grandmaster Triathlon Classical Tournament, we had 3 draws and 1 decisive game. Again, win with a black color. Let's quickly have a look at what happened in those games. So first we are going to start with the game of the Marai Gukesh against Arkady Naidich. And this was the chance for Gukesh to become one of the youngest players in the history to reach the elite club of 2700. So here, after d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, bishop b4, Naidich apparently lately is a big expert in the Bogo Indian, trying to surprise his opponent with his opening preparation. Knight e2 felt normal, b6, a3, bishop d2, queen d2. Clearly, white is hinting at an idea like b3, bishop b4, or bishop b2, position the bishop on the long diagonal. After bishop b7, e3, short castle, we felt that perhaps b4 was slightly too fast. Maybe white should have started with the bishop e2, short castle first. Now, after b4, a5, suddenly Naidich was able to organize a very interesting counterplay at the queenside. After bishop b2, some trades were made, queen c1, rook a1, bishop a1. Apparently, later, we would be informed by the dear viewers that this was a game with the queen on c2 between Magnus Carlsen against Arkady Naidich. Only the queen was standing on c2 and not on c1. After queen e7, the pawn on b4 was under attack. So after b5, here Gukesh didn't find anything else than allowing black to force perpetual check. After queen b4, knight e2, Naidich thought for a while perhaps he could continue. However, he decided draw with black, and also in the second game in a row in the tournament, at the start of the tournament with a black color, should be a good result. So after queen b1, queen d1, queen b4, the game was repeated a couple of times and the players agreed to a draw. A very logical result. The second game of the round was Andrei Yesipenko against Salem Saleh. They played out a very interesting Ray Lopez variation with the trendy move d3, not threatening to take on c6 and somehow snatch the pawn on e5. b5, bishop b3, short castle. Black tried to keep an option at some point to play d5 and reach some sort of a typical structure of the martial attack. a4 is a typical response if white is not interested to play the martial structures. Bishop b7, knight c3, knight a5. Here, Yesipenko played a very interesting idea of bishop d5, clearly hinting that after multiple trades on d5, the black knight on a5 will be disconnected from the game. So here, c6 was played by the Emirati Grandmaster, and after bishop a2, queen c7, as in the post-game interview he confessed, he wasn't really sure if this is an actual theory, so he was improvising right now. After bishop g5, b4, knight b1, d5, black appeared to have solved his opening problems. Now after knight e2, rook d8, rook e1, in the commentary we were wondering, perhaps here Salem should have continued by d4, try to trade a couple of times on e4 and play c5, sacrificing the pawn on e5. However, here d4 was a surprise answer by Salem Saleh. Later in the game, after the game, he confessed that this idea he had seen in another game, so he decided to give it a try. It looks awkward, however, specifically here, it's not so easy for white to find a way to break through. Either c3 or 4, they're very committal ideas. Yesipenko played very logical moves, knight c4, knight e2, bishop h4, of course, not willing to give up the bishop pair. And after g6, bishop b3, king g7, white never really got around to play f4 because black always was ready to meet it. After king h1, rook h8, queen e2, rook e8, couple of moves were made, and here after knight c4, bishop e6, this was essentially a draw offer. So none of the players were able to find a strongest continuation here because every breakthrough by white like c3 or f4 is a very, very major choice. And despite the fact that black had slightly more time on the clock, he decided to call it a day and agreed for trefoil repetition. The game number 3 was Gata Kamsky with white against Vincent Keimer. After e4, c5, knight c3 already was indicating that something odd will be played out in this opening, and indeed it was. After e6, white played bishop c4, effectively mirroring the London system. After d3, a6, a3, white was aiming for some sort of an improvised Grand Prix attack. Bishop a2 was retreated with the bishop, f4, knight f3. So you see with the pawn structure that white has here, white is thinking about at some point to play f5 and is asking black very direct questions. How are you going to respond? d5 or b5 or something else? Couple of moves were made. Vincent made all the logical moves. Queen e1, bishop e7, king h1. Very mysterious move. Black continued to play it smart and played rook c8, clearly hinting that at some point having the rook on c8 should be a good idea. Now after queen g3, c4 was a brilliant idea by the young German, and as in the post-game interview it was revealed, the idea was that after dx on c4, black had intended to play b4. 8x on b4, knight x on b4, and here you see the pawn on e4 for white is quite difficult to defend. Now instead, Kamsky tried to complicate matters, e5. Also, Vincent himself said he didn't really believe that Kamsky is going to take the pawn on c4. And after knight e7, knight e4, white was trying to attach more pieces to the attack. Here, Engine was also giving Vincent a chance to play knight h5, queen h3, g6, but as it would be later be told to us by Keimer himself, he wasn't really sure if this is such a great idea because the attack at the king's side is looking a bit dangerous. So after knight e7, knight e4, d5, knight g5, black already needs to be a bit careful at the king's side because white has ideas like c3, d4, bishop e1, also attached the last square bishop to start the attack. h6, knight h3, black decided to counter white's ambitions and played f5. e takes on f6 was a very logical choice. Now black has a weakness on e6, however, his pieces are slightly better positioned. Bishop d2, bishop d6, rook e1 was played by white, and here Keimer made a very interesting pawn sacrifice. He played knight e7. The point is that after rook e6, knight f5, black is so incredibly active that white decided that this is too risky to continue, and he played queen g6, allowing black to force a trefoiled repetition. So queen g3, knight f5, queen g6, knight e7, and the players decided to call it a day. And draw was agreed shortly. The fourth and final game of round 2 was Abdusatorov's game against Kwang Liem, which started actually pretty peacefully. After the Italian game, the position reached symmetrical setup very shortly. a4, bishop e3, one pair of bishops got traded. The second pair of bishops got traded. So one would expect that most likely also this game is going to finish peacefully. However, after knight g3, queen d7, take on e6, knight c4, the game slowly started to heat up. Some maneuvers were made here, clearly both of the players hinting that they want to continue the game. h5, g6, b5, queen d6, knight e6, and here started something to go terribly wrong for the young Uzbeki grandmaster. As later would Kwang Liem say in the post-game interview, white should have continued to play h4 and then only continue with g3, securing the control of the dark squares. However, the young grandmaster played g3, clearly hinting at f4, only to receive h4. Now, this most likely was not missed by white, but as it happens, usually at this level, he did not properly evaluate their rising position. After g takes on h4, white wins a pawn, but black gets a very nice control of some of the most critical squares at the king side. Now after rook g1, king h7, knight f1, knight h5, things started to look really unpleasant for white because it's already so difficult to get rid of this knight from f4. h5 was played, knight e4, another powerful idea by the Vietnamese top grandmaster. Some pawn trades happen here, and after knight f1, things went downhill very quickly for Abdusatorov. Rook f8, rook g4, knight h5, and one could not even feel that white is up a pawn. Now here, clearly not impressed by his prospects in the game, white tried to complicate matters with a piece sacrifice, which did not work. Because after g takes, rook h4, this forms a very nice pin. However, after queen g6, knight g3, f takes on e4, white was on the wrong side of the complications. After knight takes on h5, knight takes on f3, king h1, probably quite unlucky for white. This was move 41, and later in the postgame interview, it was revealed by Le Quang-Liem. Initially, he did not see queen h6, which was incredibly difficult move to make, as it sacrifices the queen. After queen h6, white has no chances. For example, as discovered, after rook g1, black has at least king h8, dodging any checks, and only then he collects the rook on h4. White tried his final tricks, knight f6 check, winning the queen. However, the problem was the placement of the white king. D takes on e4 hastened the end of the game a bit faster than intended, and the big point is that after rook h2 check, king takes on f3, black does not take on f2, and rook d2 check, which perhaps was the idea of Abdusatorov, but simply plays rook f8 and collects the extra rook in the end. So finally, let's see the results of today's game. You see 3 draws we have in the pairings, and this is the current standings in the classical tournament. Gukesh leads the tournament together with Gata Kamsky, Arkady Naidich, 5.5 points. But what really matters is the overall rankings, because Le Quang-Liem has recovered his lead in the overall rankings, leading the tournament with 15 points. Yesepenko is trailing behind with 13 points, and then we have Gukesh, 12.5, Arkady Naidich, 11.5, and also Abdusatorov and Salem Saleh are not so far behind. The action will continue on Saturday at 2 p.m. Central European Summer Time with the round 3 of the Grandmaster Triathlon Classical Tournament. Don't go anywhere. See you tomorrow. Thank you for watching us, and bye-bye.